Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Sleuth Intuition channel. I'm your host, Patrick Vallejos, and we are broadcasting live from Phoenix, Arizona. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. If not, let me know. Today we're diving into the Evan Clark and Pandora Kjolsrud case. They were recently found shot to death locally here in Arizona on Mount Ord. About a 30-minute drive from Phoenix, Arizona. And we'll get going here in just a few. Good to see you, Beth. Cyber Warrior. Just give it a minute or two. That way everybody has a chance to kind of join in here before we get started. What's going on with you, Ralph? The blind pug. How many of you guys are familiar with this case? So we're at about the 3 minute, actually the 4 minute mark. I think at the 5 minute mark we'll just jump right in. Beth says I've never heard of it. This happened Memorial Day weekend. So where I was camping out in the White Mountains, you have to drive right by Mount Ord, which is where they were found. I've been camping on Mount Ord probably a dozen times. It's one of the locations that's, you have pine trees, high elevation, but it's not too far from the city. It's kind of like Four Peaks in a way. But yeah, I've been camping right where these young folks were found. And when we went camping out near Sholo, we drove right by here. On the way out there and then on the way back. Ralph says, nope, have not heard of it. All right, so this is going to be a quick overview here. So this is what I kind of have planned for you guys. We're going to do an overview of the case. We're going to try to profile the killer because I mean they don't have any leads on this case. Apparently there's some weird stuff going on with the crime scene. The bodies weren't found anywhere near the vehicle or where they were camped out, almost as if somebody made them walk away, or maybe they hiked and stumbled across something. I'm not quite sure. Um, so there are some oddities about the crime scene that law enforcement are keeping close to the vest. And we all know why, right? They want to make sure to avoid false confessions and kind of how to narrow down on a good tip, kind of filter out a good tip, the bad tips from the good tips. Also, if they're trying to preserve evidence, they don't want the killer to know what they know. So we'll do that. We'll do a profile the best we can. We'll try to stay scientific. And then we're going to go to our intuition because the scientific profile or statistical profile definitely doesn't match up with what my gut is telling me on this one. And I don't know a whole lot. I've only made a few moves. Reached out. First thing I did was I reached out to my local contact in Maricopa County, in the Maricopa County Police Office. She was the woman, the officer that helped me during the Sit Lawley, Avalar, and Cameron Myers case. You guys remember when I covered that one out of Mesa? Involved two teens. Ultimately, it was determined to be a drowning while intoxicated, which I believe was bullshit, honestly. I think a lot of murders are committed that way, right? Get you would all a lot of them call them the smiley face murders, um, where people are found accidentally to have stumbled into a local river or water source, and they were drunk as a skunk, but mysteriously there's always a smiley face nearby. That could be happenstance, right? Everybody always graffitis a smiley face. You're in an urban area, guy's drunk, maybe roofied, whatever, stumbles out of a bar, goes into the water on accident, is just so drunk they can't get out, right? The undertow and the current, whatever. But also, it would be apparently the easiest way to commit a murder because when they find victims who are severely intoxicated and also drowned, they just determine that to be the cause is the alcohol. Well, if you're some kind of serial killer, um, all you would have to do is get your victim completely drunk and obliterated, and then take them to a deep um, water source. They're going to be too drunk to fight back. And then when law enforcement shows up, they're going to be like, oh, they just got so drunk they fell into the water. And there are a series of murders called the smiley face murders that's what it's all about. Well, that's the first thing that I did. I reached out to my contact. She works directly with media. So I'm waiting on an email back, and then I will go ahead and put in a FOIA request. But I wanted to hear what she has to say first. Because sometimes she'll give me, she'll tell me what they're saying around the department, what the rumors are, what the speculation is, what the media may not know. Right? That's what we do best here on Sleuth Intuition. We try to dig up what is not readily available on the surface. You know? Okay, so on May 27th, 2025, two Arizona teenagers, 18-year-old Pandora Kjolsrud and 17-year-old Evan Clark, were found dead with gunshot wounds near Mount Ord in Tonto National Forest, Maricopa County, Arizona. Here, maybe we should pull that up on the map. Let me pull up my Firefox. Excuse me. Hopefully I bookmarked it. Let's see. fundraiser, Facebook, but not the maps. So bear with me. I'm going to pull it up. All right, let's stop my camera for a little bit. We'll remove this video. Then we'll share the screen. Yeah, how's everybody doing, by the way? Okay, so you have Phoenix here. You have the 202 that turns in, well, technically it's the 87. And this is the highway you would take from Phoenix to Payson, Arizona, which is the first stop. You guys remember when I went live? Well, that's where I stopped, was in Payson, remember? So seeing as my wife is pregnant, you know, we have a few stops. We like to stop here in Payson, and then in Show Low, we'll stop. Usually we'll stop again on the way towards near Alpine, Arizona. Well, look where we had to drive. We drove right near Mount Ord. This is how you get to Mount Ord. And I've been here. I've camped here. I've camped right where this crime scene is. This is an extremely busy road during the holiday season, specifically Memorial Day. So there's all kinds of traffic. Everybody from the big city is driving right by here. And most times this gets backed up because all of the memorial traffic that's trying to get up to the lakes up here, Forest Lakes, which is more where the city slickers go, Willow Springs, Woods Canyon Lake. I think there's Knoll and Bear somewhere around here. Yeah, there's Bear Canyon. And then Knoll should be somewhere over here. Well, this is great camping all through here. But unfortunately, most of the folks coming from the city also take that route. So Memorial Day, they came out here over the weekend, apparently to watch the sunrise. And I believe this is where they were at right here. Actually, no. We'll have to find that here in a minute. It might actually be somewhere over here. Yeah, this might actually be it right here. Let me see. I have their drone footage. I snatched this from, I think, Fox. Let's see. This might pinpoint it for us. Mark, welcome in. Big Mark, welcome in. Our Mark. Okay. 18-year-old Pandora, Kjolsrud, and 17-year-old Evan Clark were found dead with gunshot wounds near Mount Ord and Tonto National Forest, Maricopa County, Arizona. The Maricopa County Sheriff's Office is investigating their deaths as a double homicide, with the teens' bodies discovered in a remote area off State Route 87. Separate from their vehicles, the two Arcadia High School students, that's a Phoenix high school, had been camping over Memorial Day weekend starting May 25th. Okay, so when was May 25th? Sorry, I'm just pulling up my calendar. Okay, so May 25th was that Sunday. So we left on the 23rd and came back on Tuesday the 27th. So they went up there just for a quick trip, maybe just one day. Like I said, it's not very far from the city. So that would have been a Sunday. And they were expected to come back on Monday. And when they were late to show up, they were reported missing. And family and I think some law enforcement went out there to search. That's when they found them deceased. They ruled out drug relation. They ruled out murder suicide. They ruled out stuff like that. But they do grow marijuana up there. I know for a fact because when I was younger, me and a friend actually did do that. I remember going with him to help him water his plants when I was in my 20s. He ended up getting busted, but it does happen. I doubt it would have been a cause for something like this. And I don't know if people go, they don't. I've never seen anybody cook meth out there. There's too many places to cook meth in Phoenix to feel like you need to go out there. You know what I mean? So it wouldn't be anything like that. My gut tells me that the killer knew them, knew they were going to be out there, but we'll get to that. Like I said, we'll do a statistic profile to the best of our ability. Try to stay scientific, and then we'll kind of do a gut check. Okay, the two Arcadia High School students had been camping over Memorial Day weekend starting the 25th to celebrate the end of the school year. Yeah, they had graduation, I think, not too long ago. No suspects have been identified, and the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office has ruled out murder, suicide, robbery, sexual assault, or involvement or drugs or alcohol. The investigation remains active, and authorities renewing calls for public assistance, asking anyone who was near Mount Ord on May 25th or 26th to contact the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office tip line at 602 876 TIPS. That's 602 876 8477. The case has drawn attention due to its similarity to past unsolved campsite murders in Arizona, including a 1973 case involving two Arcadia High School students at a 2003 case in Yavapai County. Now, we're going to look at similar cases. We might touch on Emily Pike's case, only because that's still an unsolved case. And I mean, you never know. If we're going to be profiling this person, maybe we're dealing with a serial killer. We'll see. We will see. Welcome in, Grunge Truck. Warm day in Pittsburgh. I think it's about 110 here today. Yeah, you got it, Mark. I mean, it's definitely disturbing. Some things about the crime scene that the investigative team does not want to release to the public. We all know why. It's nothing nefarious. It's all just part of their investigative strategy. Investigations 101, really. But the fact that they weren't found near their vehicle, does that tell us anything? What does that say about profiling the killer? We don't know the caliber of weapon that was used. So, Okay, yeah, this looks like it right here. Would be nice to get some coordinates, but this looks like it to me. You can kind of see the path coming through right there. The fork in the road right here. And then it kind of veers off to the right. So yeah, when you get up here to Mount Ord, the thing about it is you get to a certain point where if you don't have the right type of vehicle, you can't go any further. So actually, I don't think I've ever camped right here. But this would be a good place to see the sunset. But if you continue up the road, you can basically bring a car all the way up to this point. It's not that rough. I mean, it's rough, but it's not that rough. Actually, yeah, that might be the point right here. Yeah, somewhere up in here it gets pretty rough. But this looks to me like more of a like maybe you're not familiar with the location. So anybody from the city traveling between the city and to Payson, Arizona, if they were looking to camp overnight, I mean, I think they would stumble upon this. So they say they were found away from their vehicle. So that would make sense because we've done that in this area before, just hiking, right? You have a vehicle that's not really built for off-roading or rough terrain. You would get to about this point here, you would park, and then you would hike the rest of the way because this looks kind of rough. And it's not really that far of a hike to, let's say, your favorite spot, which is right here where they were found. So I don't know, what were they planning, just to bring their sleeping bags, their chairs, maybe a tent right here? And maybe somebody else was already there. So only the killer will know what law enforcement means by they weren't near their vehicles. So I don't know. Does that mean that their vehicle made it all the way up to the campsite? And their killers walk them out into the woods, maybe? But they were found rather quickly. But I do see a trail back here. You see it? It's like a game trail. Mark Sleuth, where were you in this house? Way So there's Mount Ord. So we drove to Payson, which is not very far from Mount Ord. Should be right here somewhere. Oh yeah, right here. So we drove to Payson, and then from Payson we drove all the way to Sholo, which is over here. And then we drove about another hour and a half out to the White Mountains out here. And we came out about 2 days prior. So they came out on the 25th, which was a Sunday. And my family, we drove right past this area on the 87 right here. 2 days before that. Remember, do you guys remember when I went live? I was like, hey, I'm in Payson. So there's like a turnoff right here. I don't think this is the right one. Hold on. Yeah, I guess that's it. So this road kind of keeps going up higher and higher and higher. And that's the top of Mount Ord right there. So they would have been camping like somewhere like over here. Maybe even like right here. Either way, it would have been like on this side of the mountain so that you could see the sun going down. I'm assuming, right? So this is like the main highway. It says Duthie Martin Highway, but I know it as the Beeline Highway. Grunge. I almost passed out while running at 29 Palms. Yikes! Yeah, they had to rescue a whole bunch of people from Camelback Mountain the other day, which is smack dab in the middle of Phoenix. We're in like 107-degree weather right now. It's no joke, you know. And we have construction workers. We have like all these people that work outdoors. So shout out to those guys. I mean, it's basically superhuman. Been there, done that. No thanks. What's going on with you, Don Spain? What are you up to, Don? You on the road? Yeah, I used to go camping at night. When you're young and you don't really get to pick your work hours, just anxious to go on a quick little vacation. So you just go right after work, on a Friday or something. I used to just when I was younger, I would drive all the way from Phoenix out here and go fishing at these lakes, the forest lakes up here. Just take my truck, a bottle of whiskey, and my fishing gear. I didn't even need a sleeping bag or anything. Passed out in the truck, woke up, went fishing. Brought a fish. A young. All right. No suspects have been identified. So we're going to bring some attention to this case. Rehearsing some music. Headed to California this weekend for 3 weeks. Ooh. Good luck, buddy. Wild horses couldn't drag me to California. And I've been saying that. I just don't feel safe there. I don't feel like I'm in America. Okay, let's see if we can profile this killer here. And then you guys can tell me what your gut is telling you. We're going to do everything from a statistical standpoint, right? What is most likely the profile of this killer? Okay, so we'll start with the crime scene and case details. And remember, this is just our amateur profile. And I do mean amateur. All right, location remote area near Mount Ord, Tonto National Forest off State Route 87. And this is right, technically Maricopa County. The area is rugged, accessible only by a single lane, rutted road requiring four-wheel drive with no formal campgrounds, only makeshift fire pits. What's up, Miss Dog Lover with the super chat? All right, guys, remember, if you can't hit the Cash App, hit the thumbs up. It's right there. So we've determined the location is right there. That is the crime scene. Okay, so it's a single lane rutted road requiring four-wheel drive, which is true, basically true, especially to get up to that campsite. You can kind of see how the rain, torrential downpours, and flash flooding kind of carves out the road pretty good. Me, I live in Phoenix. I live in the same city that these victims are from. They're more near, I believe, Scottsdale, if I'm not mistaken. Hold on, let me go back to my notes. Okay. The victims were killed on or around May 26th. So I believe that would have been a Monday during a Memorial Day weekend camping trip. So we're talking about a lot of people out here. A lot of different people are drawn to this area from the big city during Memorial Day weekend. So the only question is, why are they out here? You think they had a camp set up after they killed these people? They just put their stuff away? Would have been somewhere in here. Okay. The bodies were found May 27th. So, yeah, it looks like the bodies were found the day that we were coming home from camping. They were discovering this. That's fucking creepy. Look, my entire family, while they were discovering these bodies, we were right here on this highway. That's unsettling. Yeah, I think this might be where we go camping. But closer to this little like fork in the road, I think there's like little spots you can go. I think if you hike a ways up right here too, there's like little camping spots. Yeah, here's one. This is typically where I would go. Right there. So we would park our car like down here, depending on who drove. This was mostly back when we went to high school. So if you didn't have a like a 4-wheel drive or SUV or truck, you could park here and then go camping up over here where they were found. Or if you wanted to hike a little bit further, you could go to here. Or if you were with somebody that had like a pickup truck, you would just throw all your shit. They would go dump all their stuff, come back down, and then you would load all your gear up into their vehicle and then go back up. So that could have been what happened. Maybe the killer, if they were found somewhere not near their car, maybe their killer knows them. They put all their shit in the killer's truck or SUV. Killer drives all their stuff up here. Something happens where there's a murder at the campsite. Killer packs up all his gear, puts it back in his truck, leaves. The people who find the victims, Pandora and Evan, only find these bodies laying here because the actual killer had packed up all his stuff and has driven away. Just thinking out loud on that one. Safe travels to you, Don. What's going on, Beth? Okay, so they were found May 27th. That's a Tuesday in the morning. Pandora, Kjolsrud, she was 18 years old, female, and Evan Clark, 17-year-old male, both from Arcadia High School. Both Arcadia High School students described as outgoing, adventure-loving teens. They were camping to celebrate the end of the school year. Okay, cause of death. Both died from gunshot wounds. What does that tell us? It would help if we knew the caliber. The Maricopa County Sheriff's Office has classified the deaths as a double homicide, ruling out murder, suicide, robbery, sexual assault, or drug alcohol involvement. That tells me maybe the toxicology report that they didn't go up there to get high. They just went up there. I think that's what they're trying to tell us there. The bodies were found in a separate location from their vehicle, suggesting possible movement or luring of the victims. So I don't know if they're misinterpreting that. I don't quite understand what they mean. I wish they would clarify that. Here, let me read that again. The bodies were found in a separate location from their vehicle. So the first thing that pops in my mind is my own personal experience, right? But I don't know the type of vehicle that they were in. Maybe they were in a truck. If you had a truck or an SUV, you could definitely get up here. You couldn't go much further, but you could definitely get to this spot. But if you didn't have an SUV or truck and you were driving, let's say, a sedan, you would most likely park here in this area and then walk up. So I don't know, did they walk up here and there's like already some creepy dude? Somebody running from the law? And I don't know, they become friends or something? I don't know. Like, hey, there's more than enough room for all of us. Thank you, Mark. All right, no suspect information or motive has been released, and the deaths are deemed suspicious. As of June 10th, as of yesterday, they have made no arrests, identified no suspects, and is appealing for public tips indicating a lack of actionable leads. So that's what we're doing today, guys. Anybody that hasn't heard or seen this case, pay close attention. Mount Ord, Arizona, Memorial Day weekend. So if you were anywhere near this area, possibly even camping, because this place over here is actually pretty busy. So there may have even been like a small party or something going on. I've come up here on holidays or weekends and stumbled across people. All right, let's look at the victimology. Pandora Kjolsrud, she was 18. She was a senior, vibrant, loving hiking and camping, musically inclined, frequented Camelback Mountain, described as a bright light with a wide social circle. Okay, so was in me, my gut tells me this person knows them personally, and this is some kind of crime of passion. But that's just what my instincts are telling me. That's not what the profile says. Described as a bright light with a wide social circle. Evan Clark, he was only 17. He was a junior, so he wasn't graduating. He was 1 year younger, outgoing, enjoyed photography, cars, and concerts, known for humor and sensitivity, attended multiple schools, Rancho Solano, Veritas Prep, and then Arcadia. And I don't know why. I mean, he doesn't look gay, but I have pretty good gaydar. For some reason, I feel like Evan Clark was gay, but I could be wrong. Let's see. Relationship. They were friends, not romantically linked. See, that kind of hints more towards that. Both outdoorsy, likely targeted due to their presence in a remote area. Okay, so the statistical profile tells us it has to do more with the location. Opportunistic. Presence in a remote area rather than personal connections. My gut differs with this, but we'll try to stay focused. Their social prominence at Arcadia High School suggests a low risk lifestyle, reducing the likelihood of targeted victimizations based on personal disputes. See, my gut tells me that that's not the case. My gut says, hey, my first instinct, this is personal. This was personal. Somebody that knew them, somebody with a vendetta, somebody that knew they were going out there, maybe misread the circumstances. Um, but the logical, statistical profile is not saying that. Um, so, not romantically linked, both outdoorsy, likely targeted due to their presence in a remote area rather than personal connections. Okay, what about the risk factors? Let's put this back up on the stage. Okay, risk factors. Camping in an isolated area with limited cell service and no formal security increase their vulnerability. The holiday weekend may have attracted others to the area, including potential offenders. All right, so now we're starting to narrow it down. Let's see. Crime analysis. Double homicide by firearm. Remember when we were looking into the Elizabeth Barraza case, we wondered if that would help profile our killer. They told us that it was a 380 revolver. A lot of people use that as a concealed carry weapon, and most concealed carry type weapons are the weapon of choice with females, smaller hands and whatnot. So, double homicide by firearm, likely premeditated or opportunistic. Opportunistic. Well, there's only two options. The use of a gun suggests intent to kill quickly and efficiently, minimizing physical confrontation. So, why'd you kill them? If it doesn't involve drugs or alcohol, we know that their motive for being out there was just to watch the sunset. They like the outdoors. It's Memorial Day. Hey, let's go do something. Screw all these other guys. You're my tight homie right now, and let's go do what we do. Let's go have our good conversations, talk about all the bullshit, and let's go enjoy nature. So while they're doing that, according to our logical profile, they bumped into somebody that was already out there or on their way there while they were there. Not targeted. Okay, the use of a gun suggests intent to kill quickly and efficiently, minimizing physical confrontation. So I feel like that kind of fits with my gut instinct of a crime of passion. Like, oh, you guys are going up there, you're going to go there with this guy. Or, hey, you know, it could be another guy who's interested in Evan. I don't know. I don't know why I'm getting that vibe. I just feel like he might be homosexual. I could be wrong. If you could correct me, either in the chat, replay crew. I just want to get the facts straight. Okay, gunshot wounds indicate a ranged attack, possibly from a distance or in a controlled encounter. The absence of robbery, sexual assault, or drug involvement suggests the motive was not financial, sexual, or substance related. Okay, so if it's not financial, sexual, or substance related, what the hell is motivating this person? Just a sicko? Welcome in, CJK. Good to see you. The body's separation from the vehicle could imply the victims were ambushed, lured, or moved post mortem. The remote location suggests the killer was comfortable navigating rugged terrain and may have planned to avoid detection. Yeah, and it's not far either, Mark. So if I need to go out there and take a look, I can. But right now we're trying to generate a tip. So as long as we can bring attention to the case, we're doing at least the bare minimum. Okay, opportunistic. Let me know what you guys think in the chat. The killer targeted the teens due to their isolation, possibly a thrill kill or territorial act by somebody claiming the area. Personal, targeted. Less likely, but a grudge or conflict with one or both victims, a peer or acquaintance, could explain the attack, though no evidence supports this. And right now, there really is no evidence, so nothing is supported. That's the problem with evidence. If you don't have any, it doesn't mean that such certain things aren't happening. You just don't have the information to prove it or indicate whether or not it's happening. The killer may have been a transient or squatter in the forest, reacting to perceived intrusion. National forests like Tonto have looser regulations attracting extended stay individuals. You're allowed to camp for up to 14 days, and you don't even have to move out of the area. You can simply move to another designated campsite right next to your current camping location for another 14 days. So if you're a transient, homeless, or whatever on the run, Arizona wilderness is, you could basically live out there if you wanted to. Okay, so we've taken a look at the crime scene, the victimology, the criminology, and really all we have now is speculation. So let's do that. All right, what is the likely gender of our killer. Statistically speaking, likely male. Firearm homicides in remote areas are predominantly committed by males, and the physical demands of navigating Mount Ord's terrain align with male behavior patterns. Do you guys agree with that? All right. In this profile, I have the killer between the ages of 20 and 40. Now, remember, my gut profile is completely different than the statistical profile. So, statistic killers, the capability and familiarity with the area, suggesting an adult with some life experience but not elderly. Younger offenders in their 20s may lean toward thrill seeking, while older ones, 30s to 40s, may have territorial motives. Okay. And we're most likely looking for somebody who is antisocial or with paranoid tendencies. The act of killing two teens in a remote area suggests disregard for social norms, potential hostility toward perceived outsiders, may exhibit impulsivity if it is an opportunistic attack, or control if this was a planned ambush. And what the hell is the motive? Remember, no robbery, no sexual assault, no none, no none of that. So what does that leave? Thrill seeking, territorial, rage. So you got to consider the lack of robbery, sexual assault. That points to a motive tied to power, control, or eliminating threats. Maybe even witnesses to some other activity. May have a history of minor criminality, trespassing, vandalism, or untreated mental health issues, as seen in similar cases like the 1973 Arizona campsite murders. And we're going to talk about that. Okay, so the killer is likely comfortable in remote, rugged environments, possibly an avid outdoorsman, hunter, or transient. Familiarity with firearms is evident, and there is hunting through here. So this person may have hunted in this area before. I believe it's deer hunting through there. Okay, what about planning versus opportunism? The crime could be premeditated, targeting campers, which has happened. We saw that in the Bodette case. Or opportunistic, encountering the teens unexpectedly. The body separation from the vehicle suggests some degree of control over the scene, leaning toward planning. Likely fled the area quickly to avoid detection, given the lack of witnesses. May monitor news or social media for updates on the investigation. So the killer might be in the chat right now, according to this profile, right? Remember what Chandler used to tell us. He's like, man, I've been covering the Maura Murray case and other cases, and I just want you to know the killer is in your chat. Whenever you're covering a case, it doesn't matter what it is, whatever it is, just remember the killer is in the chat. That kind of send chills down my spine. So if you're here, Mr. Killer, say something. Tell us why you did it. All right. This killer may have a history of minor offenses, illegal camping, firearm violations, or unreported confrontations with campers or even hikers. Less likely to have a major violent record as no suspects have been publicly identified. Yeah, were you on Mount Ord the week before Memorial Day and some creep jumped out at you? Were you just taking a drive up to Mount Ord just for a quick hike and you noticed a strange man? A week or a few weeks prior to Memorial Day, maybe somebody that was actually looked like they were getting comfortable out there. Let me bookmark this map and then close it so it doesn't. Speculation about squatters. A lot of squatters out here in the Tonto National Forest. Okay. We're looking for a loner, marginally integrated into society, may live alone or have strained relationships, common among offenders and isolated homicide cases, right? So if this person knows the victims, his family's not concerned with his behavior. It's probably part of the reason that he did what he did is his home life, might be acting out. Possible ties to outdoor related work. Maybe we're dealing with a psychopath who had business out there. Maybe he worked up at the tower. These towers are monitored constantly. There's a fire tower up there, and there's 24-hour observation. So while this murder was happening, there was at least one or two individuals up in the tower, most likely sleeping or something, but I mean, they were present and they had a bird's eye view of what was going on. But of course, hindsight is 2020. But yeah, could it have been one of the workers there? Some psychotic employee. Likely owns or has access to a four-wheel drive vehicle necessary for navigating Mount Ord's terrain. Okay. Potential typology. Maybe a visionary killer. If driven by paranoia or delusions, perceiving campers as threats, though less likely without signs of disorganized behavior. This seems more like an organized crime scene. Just the controlled use of a gun as well. You think somebody out there with psychopathy would more likely use a blade or, try to bash the victims in some type of panic or fit of paranoia. I think we're definitely dealing with power or control, more likely seeking dominance over victims in a remote setting, using a firearm to assert control efficiently. But also, it could be a thrill killer, right? Somebody fantasizing about murder and seeing these two young people as easy targets. What we've learned about psychopathy and sadism, right? That's what they prey on. If you're a homicidal psychopath, that's what you're looking for is an easy target. Because really what you want to do is kill. You want to victimize, you want to see people suffering, and you want to take that ultimate plunge of taking somebody's life. You fantasized about it. And now here's your chance, right? You're in a rural location, there's no witnesses, and basically sitting ducks. Territorial offender could be a squatter, local claiming the area, reacting violently to perceived intrusion, as speculated in similar forest homicides. And that can go hand in hand with mental health, right? Okay, so that's what the statistical profile says. What does your gut say? Mine tells me that the killer knew that they were going to be there. maybe has even gone there before with one of the victims, if not both, and targeted them. Went up there, found them, killed them, and then left. That was their only purpose for being there. So we are at the top of the, or we're at the top of the hour number 2. We're going to go ahead and jump into similar cases. Okay, let's start with Emily Pike. Most of you are familiar with the Emily Pike case, right? All right, Emily Pike homicide, February. Tonto National Forest, approximately 19 miles north of Globe. So she was living in a group home in Mesa, Arizona, ran away, and not far from where she used to live, on the Apache reservation, she was found dismembered. And in recent videos released in Emily Pike's case, she said, "I want to go home to my mother." So I think it's possible that she made it back to her reservation and somebody there took advantage of her and then killed her. She did report a few different sexual assaults before she was taken from her mother's care at the Indian reservation and placed into the group home. So she had gone missing from a group home in January of this year. Her death was ruled a homicide, obviously, though specific causes were not publicly disclosed. The FBI and local law enforcement are investigating, but no arrests have been made. The similarities: young victim, homicide in the Tonto National Forest, remote area, unsolved as of June 2025. Cases raise concerns about safety in the forest, similar to the Mount Ord incident. Notable differences: Pike was alone and not camping, and the location is farther east. No evidence of shooting was reported. To me, the connections are the city and then the forest, right? The Tonto National Forest. So these kids were from the city, just like Emily Pike, and the killer traveled from the city into the Tonto National Forest. So it's as if it was the same killer, the person is somebody who travels or comes into the city occasionally, or might be bouncing around out there, living a transient lifestyle. Because you could definitely do that. Let's say you have a camper and a decent vehicle. Yeah, you could definitely do that. Okay, now this is the interesting one. So those Pandora and Evan were both from Arcadia. Check out this case from 1973. It was dubbed the campsite murder. Near Globe, Arizona, in a remote camping area, roughly 50 miles from Mount Ord, within the broader Tonto National Forest region, 2 Arcadia High School students, both 17, that's right around the same age of our victims, were found dead at a campsite in 1973. So that would be really creepy if this was the same person. Maybe it's a teacher, former student. They had been shot, and the case initially went unsolved. Years later, a suspect was identified, but the case drew attention due to its parallels with the 2025 Mount Ord killings. Crazy. Both victims were, in both cases, victims were Arcadia High School students killed by gunfire at a remote campsite, mirroring the Kjolsrud and Clark case. So that was very interesting. And in that case, the suspect was eventually identified. Or was he? The 2003 Yavapai County campsite murders near Prescott. So near Prescott, Arizona, in a remote area of Yavapai County, approximately 100 to 120 miles northwest of Mount Ord. Hold on. I got a text. Let's see. So 2 individuals were found dead at a campsite, killed by gunfire. The case was initially unsolved, but later linked to a suspect. It has been cited in media coverage. Let's see. Also, the Chad Holvig and Anthony Vane homicide, 2023, Goodyear, Maricopa County, approximately 70 miles southwest of Mount Ord. Chad Holvig, a Tonopah man, and Anthony Vane were found dead in a Goodyear home in August of 2023. Holvig's son Dalton found shot but alive. The case remains unsolved. Because of time, I want to play a couple of videos and then we got to get out of here. So let me remove this.
Office continues investigating. The 2 teenagers were found shot and killed during a camping trip in the Mount Ord area. The Maricopa County Sheriff's Office continues investigating the deaths of Pandora Kjolsrud and Evan Clark as suspicious. I sat down with Evan's father, Bill, and he tells me he will struggle to understand and come to terms with the 17-year-old's death for the rest of his life. And Clark believes that will be the case for so many other friends and family members in his son's circle who were touched by Evan's energetic, adventurous, and kind spirit.
He's every parent's, hope. And speaking as a father, he's exactly what I could hope for.
Evan Clark's broad smile lit up a room ever since he was a baby.
I know why he had so many friends. He always had a lot of enthusiasm and always brought a lot of energy to things, too.
Energy the 17-year-old brought to his passions: cars, photography, travel, even work. His dad, Bill Clark, says more recently, Evan fell in love with the outdoors.
He got very involved with hiking and camping in the last year or so, and I encouraged it as much as I could.
That love of camping took him to the Mount Ord area over Memorial Day weekend to camp with his friend, 18-year-old Pandora Kjolsrud. Tell me about, those moments getting him ready for that trip that he was so excited to go on.
It seemed like any other trip.
But when Evan and Pandora did not come back, the families grew concerned. Clark says he joined Maricopa County Sheriff's deputies in the search, never imagining Evan and Pandora would be found shot.
Every morning, and several more times each day, I have to remind myself that the most remote possibility actually occurred. He was a safe boy. He was risk averse.
As MCSO investigates the deaths as suspicious, shock ripples through the community.
It's a time-worn cliche, but that doesn't mean it's not true. He would want everyone to keep moving.
Heading into his senior year, Evan's dad says he planned to attend ASU.
I have no doubt that Evan was going to go on to a lot of very good things.
As he grapples with a life cut short, Clark says he's spending time processing alongside Evan's friends.
Nothing prepared me for this.
Giving them some of his old baseball caps and hoping, despite immeasurable loss, they will push forward.
Evan was always very enthusiastic, so carry that.
For ABC 15.
Pandora Kjolsrud and 17-year-old Evan Clark were found shot to death in the Tonto National Forest the morning of Tuesday, May 26th. The 2 Arcadia High School students were just 5 days into summer break on a camping trip to Mount Ord. The Maricopa County Sheriff's Office has called this a double homicide and a murder investigation, listing their deaths as suspicious. But what happened to Pandora and Evan? 2 weeks later, the investigation is still active with no leads. Today, the Sheriff's Office says despite exhaustive efforts in the pursuit of all available leads, detectives have thus far been unable to develop actionable results. They're turning to the community, asking for any information or details, no matter how small. All tips will be handled with discretion and can remain anonymous.
The Sheriff's Office believes it's information from the public that could be critical in solving this case, bringing answers and justice to the victims and their families. Now, those tip lines right here on your screen can also be found on our website, fox10phoenix.com.
Now, Kenzie, we know that you've made the trip to this area where they were found, and this is a pretty remote area, right?
Yeah, very desolate, very remote. It's about an hour and a half from the main highway up there. No water, no restrooms.
Wow.
Not really any cell service, but this was a holiday weekend. So, I mean, we've seen some stuff going around that there were people up there hiking and maybe camping, but most people that tell me they've taken day trips as opposed to overnight trips up in that remote area.
I know you had a chance also to talk to some of the friends that were there to vigil when this first happened. Are they saying anything about?
Yeah, typically when you visit Mount Ord, it's just like a day trip. You go for a hike, but there are a few people that go up there for camping. If it wouldn't be my first choice to go camping, but if you're in a hurry and you might be like a city slicker and you don't know any other location, that might be your first choice. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this live stream. I just wanted to do a quick introduction of Evan and Pandora's case. We're going to keep digging into it. Like I said, I got a few things that I want to take care of. We'll attempt to do a FOIA request on, I believe it's the 911 call. There might be multiple. And then also we'll try to get our hands on some body cam footage of the first responders and see if we can't try to bring more attention to the case, find some answers. All right, guys, and remember, if you can't hit the Cash App, what do? You hit the like button. All right, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.